So, interesting. In our final opinion poll question, we gave people a list of random ideas and we asked whether they thought they would improve politics or not. So have a look. These are the top 3. So, improving politics, this is hard line here. They say, oh, more severe penalties for MPs guilty of breaking rules on behaviour and standards, penalties for MPs sharing fake news and making false claims, and MPs pay based on performance. For example, attendance in Parliament. So it's so interesting. So Harriet's all about connecting, and then Alex behind her is all about stopping the lying. Where do we go? Let's talk now to non-politicians. On our final panel here, we have no politicians. We've got left-wing activist Ash Sarkar. We've got Michelle Dewberry, who won The Apprentice but lost when she stood as an independent pro-Brexit candidate at the last general election. Tom Newton-Dunn, political editor of The Sun, and Conservative broadcaster Iain Dale. I think we can impartially applaud our panel. And Tom, you got a scoop today, because before the Boris Johnson press conference, you had this headline. Let's see the headline. Basically, this is tomorrow's paper, Boris snaps.
Tomorrow's Sun, Boris Johnson is going to call out his critics in Parliament, especially his Tory MP rebels, and say, fine, if you try and pass legislation to tie my hands, I will go straight to the country, and guess what? We'll have the 4th nationwide vote in 3 years, because that's just what the punters want, isn't it?
OK. Well, very interesting, different takes on what should be done to change this. Ash, the polls suggest you just got to punish MPs for when they do bad things. What about that?
Well, one of the main forces that's supposed to hold our politicians to account is our press and our media. And there are huge problems with our press and our media. And if I may say so, I'm very, very grateful for being invited here. But this show is the perfect example of it. We're having a discussion about trust in politics where some of the main panellists have distinguished themselves in their careers through dishonesty.
Oh, my goodness. OK.
And
who are we looking at here?
It's like inviting Hannibal Lecter to lecture you on vegetarianism.
Are you thinking of people... I don't know, who are we thinking of? I'm getting a bit worried. OK, so you don't like politicians because you think they don't tell truths?
No, but I'm saying that our political media has been snoozing on the job as well. The fact that we can have... you know, all the greatest respect to you, Chirkaram, but you're not being called out for the discrepancy in your position of the country should think again on Brexit, but the people of Streatham can't think again on whether or not they want you as an MP. Ludicrous. We've got...
Go on, let me have Chirkaram's response.
In fairness to Jeremy, he actually put that point to me and I answered the question. And also the other thing is I did answer the question, and also let's also be honest about your position, which is not an independent journalist. You are a campaigning Jeremy Corbyn supporting journalist, so you're not going to like me very much, are you?
Listen, I throw my hands up and I say I am partisan, I am left wing. Those are my values. I'm honest about it. But the fact that we can also get a lecture on honesty from Alistair Campbell. When I look at him, the 3 letters that come to my mind are WMD. Have we all forgotten that?
He has left the building, so I can't ask him to come back. Iain Dale is this political journalist. You're one as well. Ash is one. I'm one. We're the problem now. What do you think?
I think that we are part of the problem. I think people are very sceptical about how the political lobby works, about these anonymous sources that come to journalists like Tom. We see these sources close to X say this. Now, most of the time, we trust the journalists that they have actually got that quote, but I can think of several journalists where I don't trust that they've got that quote. They've actually made it up. But let's go back to the politicians. People want politicians to stop acting like robots. They don't want to hear the likes of Matt Hancock going on a programme and just coming out with these pre-prepared lines. They want politicians to show some honesty, to show that they're genuine. And most politicians are capable of that. But something happens to them when they go into government. They get a little chip inserted where they just become so robotic. And as an interviewer, it's incredibly frustrating. And you try your best to get something out of them, but you know that they're just going to trot out the same line for the 3 minutes that you've got them.
Do you find that, Michelle, as well, watching politics on TV?
Well, I think that we have so many things. We could do an entire show on what is broken and how we're going to fix it, and just the how we're going to fix it part, which is this bit, could take up the full hour. And I think we've got a broken system. It's not just about politicians being honest or dishonest. I think one of the challenges that you're saying, Iain, is when you interview people, they toe out the party lines. One of the reasons for that is when someone dares to be honest, There are witch hunts often against them. So when people say we want our politicians to be like us, what you then find is when someone is suspected of having, for example, taken cocaine at a dinner party once upon a time, the journalists are on them and over them, and if that person did indeed admit that once upon a time they did something wrong, they would never hear the end of it.
They get punished for going off message, Tom, and then when they behave like robots, we complain. What is the solution here?
With respect to Michelle, who I know and like a lot, I'm not sure that's quite right. What we really get excited about...
Look at Michael Gove.
It's 100%
there's
Michael
a case for an example. What we really get excited about is not journalists, politicians taking cocaine. Journalists don't take cocaine, far from it. Politicians... It's when politicians mislead about it. So what got Michael Gove in real trouble was not the admission that he'd taken cocaine 20 years ago. It was the fact he wrote columns in the Times at the time saying cocaine's a terrible scourge of the middle classes and they're encouraging drug dealing on the streets. So it's the hypocrisy we go after. I think the answer from the gentleman in the crowd is absolutely spot on. Politicians have to start by changing their language. They have to be honest and they have to
But you would go
admit...
for them, Tom, and you know you would. Come on, if a politician was honest and said, I'd done something, you would, and then we have witch hunts that we see
Say the Chancellor says, look,
we don't.
6 days
it's
a
the
week...
hypocrisy that we go for.
If the Chancellor says, look, to be honest with you, 4 days a week I disagree with the Prime Minister. That's just the way it is. We have a stand-up row, and then the other 3 days we sort it out. The political journalists just report the 4 days. They say, oh, this relationship's in chaos.
Except if they said that all the time, here's the funny thing. If they said it all the time, it wouldn't be news any longer. It's the fact that they're supposed to be robotically brilliant friends all the time.
So this is actually where I disagree with both of you. I actually think that we grossly overstate the adversarial relationship between the pundit class and politicians, because the big lie here is that we're set up to have a big old bun fight. We all disagree, we're having a go at each other. In the green room, everyone is trilling and air kissing and how are yous, because they're on the same speakers circuit. They all go to the same cocktail parties, and fundamentally,
what about you?
they represent
what about
the same
you? You're
establishment
part of it
interest.
too. You're part of the problem.
One, I don't get invited to cocktail parties. But two...
There's a reason for that.
Let me just hang on. I've got to go back to one of the MPs we started with. Gloria, what do you think about this? That maybe it's not just the MPs, it's the class around them, it's people like me.
Well, people think that we do all hang out together and that we are part of a sort of cosy cartel. I think that's a little bit, because I've been a journalist and a politician, and actually I think it is a little bit unfair. I think Iain's point is really hearing a robotic politician, it is the kiss of death. Yeah. And bizarrely, I think Jeremy comes across as sincere because he never was a front bencher. So he doesn't know, he's never had to trot out the lines.
It's true. Corbyn, actually, Simon Jacobs, Jeremy Corbyn does have a rather unusual take where he will listen to a question, stop, think, and then answer it, which is I've never seen before.
I think very few people realise why Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson are the two party leaders at the moment. And the reason is they come across, in some curious way, sincere. They may not be, but they come across as that. They do not sound robotic. So I think Iain's point is the point.
So is that, just quickly to Tracy, the robot thing is coming up again and again?
It is, but I think it's going back to what we said earlier about where do our politicians come from? How do you get into politics? And, you know, thinking about a general election, who's going to be standing as these candidates? You know, are they from Oxbridge? Are they been PPE? Are they, you know, have they worked in Parliament already? When I became an MP, it's the first time I'd been in the building. Okay. You know, so it is...
Go on, Rachel, one word from you. Go on.
Just to say that I don't think a general election or another referendum will solve anything. All we need to do is send everyone who voted Leave a blue passport with a 50p Brexit on it, and the job done.
OK, thank you very much indeed. That's it.